Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian from Zombie Guitar here. Here in this video, I want to talk about modes and why modes are the most misunderstood topic in the whole guitar community. Now, I know this is the case because I'm a member of a lot of different Facebook groups. I've been using forums, guitar forums, since I was like 14 or something, being a nerd and spending all my time reading about music theory in the music theory section, Reddit, different subgroups on Reddit and stuff like that. And I see the same misinformation being passed along constantly on almost a daily basis. So in this lesson, I'm going to point out to you exactly what that misinformation is, why that misinformation is being spread, and what modes actually are. So in this lesson, you're going to learn about what modes are not and what modes are, and how to actually use modes in a practical application. So let's first start by identifying the problem. So the problem is that someone comes along and they say, all right, I know how to play the G major scale in this one pattern, but I want to learn how to play the G major scale across the entire fretboard. Why would they want to do that? Well, because they want to learn how to solo in the key of G major using the entire fretboard. So if there's a rhythm section going on and the band behind them is playing everything and that is in the key of G major, as the guitar player, as the lead guitar player, you want to learn how to solo in that key using the entire fretboard and not just one single pattern. So this person, they come on and they ask that question to the Facebook group or the forum or whatever, and without a doubt, someone always comes along and they say, hey, learn your modes. That's how you do it. And that's completely not the right answer. However, that answer will lead them to the solution that they are looking for. And the reason is because that if you go onto the internet and you go onto Google and you browse the various different sites, the guitar websites and stuff like that, a lot of these sites, they'll show you modes as just single patterns. So the person who is now researching modes because they think that that's what they need, they'll say, okay, right here, if I play this pattern starting here, that's the Ionian mode pattern. And then if I move up to here and I play this pattern, that's the Dorian mode. And then if I move up to here, that's the Phrygian mode. All right, so they find their 7 different mode patterns. And then when you put those 7 different mode patterns together, it forms an entire framework of notes that work for the person to solo in, allowing them to remain in the key of G major. However, what they've done there has absolutely nothing to do with modes. The problem is it solved the problem that they were trying to solve. Now they know how to solo in the key of G major, but they still don't have any clue what modes are. And the person that gave them that advice has also been misled, and that person also doesn't know what modes are. So this person that now thinks that they understand what modes are, they now know how to solo across the fretboard, they're going to pass that advice along to someone else, continuing the the spread of this false information. All right, so this is, I guess it's not a problem because really you're getting the solution that you need, but you're not understanding modes. If this is what you think modes are, then you got to watch the rest of this video, because that's not what they are. That is just simply different patterns of the major scale that you are trying to expand. So let me explain what I mean. So let's look at the G major scale on just one little area. Let's the notes of the G major scale are G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. So if we start on the note G here, 3rd fret of the low E string, and we play through the notes of the G major scale, it would look and sound like this. So that's just one single pattern of the G major scale. I started on the G, I ended on the G, and I played through all of the 7 notes that are part of the G major scale. If I want to expand this pattern, I can start on this G, and I can play up to here. So I now just expanded that pattern. So now there's more than one G, more than one A, more than one B, C, D, E, and F sharp. There's all the notes are repeated more than once because I'm now playing in 2 octaves. So then I can even expand this pattern even more because I still have this string left. So I could play these notes like this. I could play them in any random order. It doesn't matter what order I play them in. I'm still just playing the G major scale. I'm playing the notes of the G major scale. So let's call that pattern number 1. That's actually a 3-note per string pattern. Each of the strings contains 3 notes. All of the notes are part of the G major scale. It's a 3-note per string pattern. That's our first pattern. All right, so the next thing you might want to do is maybe figure out where those same 7 notes are, but a little bit further up the fretboard here. Because remember, our goal is to try and expand and play the G major scale, ultimately covering the whole entire fretboard. So if I find those 7 notes and I can figure out where they're at around here, well, then I have another pattern that I can solo in. So let's start here on the A. So here's A, here's B, here's C, D, E, F sharp, G. And then I can keep moving this up using those same 7 notes, spanning across all 6 strings, and I would have the rest of the notes. So now I have another pattern that I can solo in. Again, this is a 3-note per string pattern. Each of the strings contains 3 notes. And those notes that are being used are only the notes of the G major scale. So if I put pattern number 1 together and I put pattern number 2 together, I've now expanded my soloing range to about this much of the fretboard just by putting those 2 patterns together. So far so good, right? But what I'm doing here is nothing to do with modes. There's nothing modal about what I'm playing. This is just the G major scale in this pattern here. I then moved up and I'm still just playing the G major scale in this pattern here. Nothing to do with modes yet. And I'm going to explain why that is in just a second. So far I've showed you 2 different 3-note per string patterns. The first 3-note per string pattern spanned across all 6 strings, and it started here on the 3rd fret. The second 3-note per string pattern we came up with spanned all 6 strings, and that started here on the 5th fret. So let's use a different starting point for each of the 7 notes of the G major scale. So you have a G, you have an A, you have a B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So for each of those 7 different notes of the G major scale spanned across the low E string, I'm going to form a different 3-note per string pattern. And essentially that 3-note per string pattern is going to contain only notes from the G major scale. So everything that you see on the fretboard diagram here, this is just your G major scale. As I told you, there's the 7 notes of the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. So every single note that you see on the entire fretboard diagram here is one of those 7 notes. Those 7 notes can be found all over the place, forming various different patterns and whatnot. The red dot indicates the note G. So you could also say that is the tonal center of the G Ionian mode. All right, so let's remove that red dot. Now we're still left with the same framework of notes. We still have those same exact 7 notes, but there's no tonal center highlighted. So let's, instead of making the G the tonal center, let's make the note E the tonal center. So now all of these dots that you see, all of these white dots on the screen, this is the note E that is indicating, just by looking at this image, that E is going to be your scale root or your tonal center. The patterns have remained the same. Nothing about this has remained or has changed. The only difference is the highlighted note is the note E, and that is the tonal center. So now I'm going to do a demo that is exactly the same as what I've done before, but the rhythm section is going to be an E minor chord. The bass is going to be playing the note E the whole time. I'm going to run through the same exact 7 patterns in the same exact order that I just did previously, but instead of landing my phrases on the note G, I'm going to end my phrases on the note E, and you're going to hear how the overall sound changes. So hopefully it was pretty obvious that there was a difference in the sound there. So what I was just playing there was known as the E Aeolian mode. So if you know what a relative major minor is, that's something you can always determine by using your circle of fifths. A relative major minor combination just simply means it contains the same notes. So there's a major key, and then there's a relative minor key for every major key. And then for every minor key, there's a relative major key. So G major and E minor, they happen to be a relative major minor pair. That means that they share the same set of notes, the same 7 notes. So the notes of G major are G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. The notes of the E minor scale are E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. Just a slightly different order, but when played in a context over a rhythm section, it doesn't matter what the order is. It doesn't matter that I started on the E. It doesn't matter what note I started on. I could play in any random order using any pattern. The fact that it was being played over an E minor chord, the fact that the bass was holding out the E, the fact that I was ending all my phrases on an E to really solidify that sound is what produced the E Aeolian type of sound. So Aeolian is just a fancy way of saying a minor key. So Ionian is major key, Aeolian is a minor key. So if you were able to hear the difference between a major key, otherwise known as the Ionian mode, and a minor key, otherwise known as the Aeolian mode, then right there, that is the understanding of modes that you need. It doesn't matter which pattern I play in. It doesn't matter where on the fretboard I'm playing. The mode is a sound. Every mode has a specific sound, all right? So what about the other 7 modes? So there's 7 modes. There's 7 notes of a scale. There's 7 diatonic chords found in a scale. So it's always 7. So each of the 7 notes or chords represents one of the modes. And it always goes in the same order. So the 7 notes of the G major scale again are G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. The 7 diatonic chords found in the key of G major are G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, and then F sharp. It's a diminished chord. So there's always going to be 3 major chords, 3 minor chords, and 1 diminished chord found in any key. So these are the 7 chords found in the key of G major. So each of the 1 through 7, each of those represents a mode, and it always goes in the same order. So 1 is always Ionian, 2 is always Dorian, 3 is always Phrygian, 4 Lydian, 5 Mixolydian, 6 Aeolian, and 7 Locrian. So, so far we've looked at making the tonal center to, revolve around the one chord. So we made the G major chord our tonal center. The note G within the patterns was our tonal center note. We then switched everything around. We kept all the patterns the same, but we switched the rhythm section around such that the E minor chord became our tonal center. The focal note within the patterns anywhere on the fretboard was the note E. So that's the sixth chord. That's the Aeolian mode. So I could do the same thing for any of the other ones, Lydian, Mixolydian, Phrygian, Dorian, anything. So let me just go and give you an example of, I want to take the A minor chord and I want to make that the tonal center. So A minor chord in this specific case, G, A. So A is the 2 chord, 2 goes with Dorian. So I'm going to play my rhythm section over the A minor chord. I'm going to have the note A within the patterns be my tonal center. So I'm going to end all my phrases on the note A, and it's going to produce yet a different sound. So let's take a look at that. So again, I did the exact same thing. I ran through the exact same 7 patterns in the same exact order. The only difference was the highlighted note on the screen was the note A. I was playing over a rhythm section that was just holding out an A minor chord the entire time. The bass note was the note A. So everything about that was A. The tonal center was A. And then within this framework of notes that I was playing in, it produced the sound of Dorian. So the first example produced the sound of Ionian. The second example produced the sound of Aeolian, and then this third example produced the sound of Dorian. And that was entirely dictated by the musical context that it was put in. So you could do the same thing for any of the 7 modes, and these same exact scale patterns will work for any of the 7 modes. So right here, we're starting out with our G major scale patterns. The red dot indicates the note G. And everything about this is telling you that this is the G major scale. If you play this over a G major chord, it's going to produce the G Ionian sound. All right, so if I, instead of making the note G colored, I want to make the note A colored. The only thing that changed is the colored note. All right, so that represents the tonal center. So now this is your A Dorian scale patterns. So everything about this is exactly the same note-wise. The only difference is your tonal center. So this is the A Dorian mode. If I can make A my focal note within these patterns while playing over a rhythm section that is making the A minor chord the tonal center, then I am playing in the A Dorian mode. I can then make it Phrygian by simply highlighting the note B and then playing over a B minor chord. I can then make it Lydian by highlighting the note C, playing over a C major chord using these patterns. I could make D Mixolydian, I could make E Aeolian, and I can make F sharp Locrian. So the patterns remain the same. It's the tonal center, it's the focal note within the patterns. That is what dictates the mode. So sorry if I sounded like I was repeating myself over and over and over again, but this is just a concept that people can't seem to grasp right away, at least. It's not that everyone is capable of understanding this. It's just one of those things that until it clicks, it doesn't make sense. But once it clicks, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I understand it perfectly. And that's how I was too. When I was first learning modes when I was younger, I was led down that same rabbit hole of misinformation, thinking that modes are just different patterns on the fretboard, that when you put them all together, you're able to play in key. So I was, I was led down that same rabbit hole too. So I didn't really understand modes either. But then once I kind of finally did, once it kind of all clicked for me, I was like, oh, I get it now. All right. And I feel that the best way to really get an understanding of that is just simply understanding the difference in sounds between a major key and a minor key. If you can understand that difference, then you can understand the difference in all the other modes, hopefully. So once it clicks for you, if it hasn't already, it will, and you will understand it perfectly once that happens. So hopefully this video was able to help that to happen for you. That's going to do it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.